Welcome to week 4 of the IBEX Winter Season Unwrap. I'm Ken Wingler. This is Tom Ginrich, my partner today in the booth.
Hello.
Today, we're going to talk about all the happenings of last week IBEX season. We'll have other topics such as fantasy, and it's a new thing for us here. Standings, awards, performances, and we'll add some little tidbits in between. We'll watch some videos of some key performances as well as home run celebrations and things of that nature. All right, Tom, let's move and talk about fantasy baseball and IBEX baseball. So you can find IBEX on the IBEX website, www.indoorbaseballx.com, a new tab on our home screen. It's the fantasy tab. Tell us about fantasy baseball and IBEX.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. We're debuting it this week. It's a fantasy baseball game that works like any other fantasy sports game you've probably played. In this case, you're picking TCIBL players. They're going to generate fantasy points for your roster. If your selections, your team scores the most fantasy points as a group, you're going to win a prize. This week, first place gets a $40 Dick's gift certificate. And then we've got a $20 and a $10 gift certificate going to second and third place.
Thanks for that. Let's talk a little bit about scoring, Tom. How have you built the scoring? What does somebody need to do week to week to win this thing?
Yeah, scoring's a little more involved. The first thing I would do is encourage you, if you do decide to play, just read the How to Play tab. It's very short. It'll give you a nice overview. There's two components to scoring. The first component is hit tracks points. So every time you swing the bat and hit tracks, you generate points. Hit tracks generates points for that swing. It's based on a number of variables, but the better the hit, the more points you get for that swing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the average number of hit tracks points per at bat generated by a player over a scoring period, and we're going to take that number and multiply it by a number that is calibrated to the ability of the player. So let's say I average 15 hit tracks points per at bat. Let's say my multiplier is 4. I'm going to take my 15 hit tracks points per at bat, multiply it by 4. I would generate 60 fantasy points for anyone who selected me on their roster.
Speaking of that multiplier, can you go in a little depth on what that multiplier is and how is that calculated?
Yeah, for sure. So it's pretty simple, actually. Let's say Tom Corcoran has the highest hit track points per at bat going into a week, and let's say that's 60. So let's say this week Tom comes in averaging 60 hit tracks points per at bat. Let's say I come into the week averaging 15 hit tracks points per at bat. Tom, as the highest average performer in the division, is going to get a multiplier of 1. He's kind of setting the ceiling. And then my multiplier is going to be the number it would take to get my average total up to his number. So I'm averaging 15, he's averaging 60. It would take 15 times 4 to get to 60. So my multiplier is going to be 4. And
go ahead, Tom.
The way that works then in the scoring dynamic is if everybody in the league basically performs at their career average. So if I'm averaging 15 points coming in and I score 15 points, and everybody else does the same thing. They basically perform their baseline. Everybody's basically going to have the same number of fantasy points. So the multiplier acts as a handicap, and it's calibrated in such a way so that lesser players get a bigger boost and better players get a smaller boost.
Yeah, so it might not always be smart to pick Tom Corcoran in your lineup. You might want to pick somebody if you had some intel that somebody was coming off a back injury the last 2 weeks, and you know they're primed to put up some big numbers. That might be the person you want to put in your lineup.
Exactly right. We talk about some of the strategies at our website. Again, look at the How to Play page where you can see some of these strategies. I mean, Ken, you're exactly right. The best players aren't necessarily going to score the most points. It's the players who score above their own baselines, with those baselines defined by their multipliers, that are going to generate more fantasy points. So Cork may score 60 fantasy points this week. Multiplier 1, he gets 60. You know, I average 20 hit tracks points per at bat. My multiplier is 4. I'm generating 80 fantasy points. So Cork actually hits a ball harder than I do, generates 60 hit tracks points per at bat. I only generate 20 hit tracks points per at bat because my multiplier, I score more fantasy points for my owner than Cork does.
Yep. So week to week, change your lineup. Go to the fantasy side of the website for IBEX at www.indoorbaseballx.com. click on the fantasy tab, set your lineup today. Talk about, Tom, where it opens and closes, because there's a tight window in there.
Yep. So the scoring period opens as soon as we release the stats from the previous week. That's typically late Wednesday night or Thursday, and then it closes Friday at 9 o'clock. So this week's scoring period, this is going to go out after the scoring period closes, but it closes at 9 p.m. Central Time every week. So we'll announce when the weekly, when you can start creating rosters. We'll announce that typically Wednesday night or Thursday morning on Twitter, and you'll have basically a day and 3/4 until 9 o'clock on Friday to lock your lineups. Once 9 o'clock hits, everything's locked up, and then we'll calculate all of the scores when the scoring period ends the following Tuesday.
Sounds good. And don't be afraid to pick your own teammates. Don't be afraid to pick yourself. Some celebrations might be awarded after some guys cheering some guys on if they're in their fantasy team.
For sure.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about what we're going to do with the Wax Pack Unwraps going forward.
Right. We named this segment the Unwrap. The idea being that we were going to be unwrapping baseball cards. We may be retiring that segment. When we started the baseball card thing last year, there was really two levels to it. One level was kind of the excitement of opening a pack, right? Most people, when they were young, open up baseball card packs. They know how much fun it is to kind of thumb through them and look for value. We were opening junk era cards that didn't have any intrinsic value, but we overlaid on those cards IBEX value. So I think we kind of rekindled some of the excitement with opening baseball card packs. And it took guys in the league a while to understand what the whole baseball card thing was. But once they understood it, I think they enjoyed it. The second layer to it was baseball cards operated as something of a prize delivery system. So every time someone found a Hall of Famer in their pack, a Reggie Jackson, Dave Winfield, Paul Molitor, whoever, that Hall of Famer became a raffle ticket into an end of the year drawing. Now, our thought was to bring that baseball card thing into this new format. But I think what we've discovered is that the first layer, this whole excitement of opening cards, kind of that tactile experience, that's completely lost. I mean, there's not a thrill to watching us open your pack and rifle through the cards, not even show you the cards and just announce to you who you found. So that whole layer is kind of removed with this new format that we have. The prize layer was and could still be in effect. So what we're thinking is that let's drop the baseball card thing, since that first layer is no longer in play, but let's kind of try to retain some of the prize aspect to it. Let's replace the prize aspect or the prize layer with a different prize delivery system, and that's what we're going to work on.
Yeah, and more information will come out on that in the coming weeks. But for all you that were drawn the first 2-3 weeks of the season, we are still entering you into that raffle at the end of the year for that battalion bat drawing.
And the other thing is keep on generating personal best exit velocities. What we're going to do is we're going to take we may take every personal best that you set, and we're still going to award Hall of Famers, because we like, when you go to your player page, you'll notice you have a section for Hall of Famers. We think that's kind of a neat feature. So we still want to issue Hall of Famers. We still want to connect that to personal bests. We're just kind of eliminating the baseball card as the way to deliver the Hall of Famers. Instead, I think what we're going to do is we're just going to eliminate that middleman layer. Every time you set a personal best, we'll assign you or award you a Hall of Famer. And then I think what we're thinking is we're going to carve out collections of Hall of Famers among all Hall of Famers. And when you fill that collection, when you get the 4 or 5 of that subset in your Hall of Fame collection, so let's say you end up getting Mays, Gehrig, Ruth, Hank Aaron, that may be a subset that we define. If you fill that subset up, we'll award you some kind of prize. So it's a little bit like an achievement system in video games, where you meet a certain number of achievements and you get a certain buff. The buffs in this case won't be something like you get to use an aluminum bat. It's not going to be anything like that, but it'll be some kind of prize. So continue setting personal bests, continue looking for Hall of Famers to be added to your player page, and stay tuned to see what you're going to win as you kind of fill out your Hall of Fame collection.
Sounds good, Tom. Thanks for that explanation. Why don't we move on to standings? Let's talk about the week that was, where we're at today, and what this upcoming weekend looks like. Let's start off with the American League with the 55 division. Let's right at the top is the Legends. The Legends were there at the top last week, but from my understanding is they still have some games to make up.
Right. The Legends didn't play this week. So you notice the IBEX win percentage column, which we moved all the way to the left of the standings now. You can see that they're still leading the division in win percentage, but they didn't play this week. So they're going to play 4 games next week. We're going to kind of backdate the first 2 games so that they fall within this period. And then next week, their IBEX win percentage will change, and the change will reflect 4 games worth of performance instead of 2. So I bring that up because there's games that the Legends haven't played yet that are ultimately going to be factored into these standings.
Yeah, but seeing them at the top though, it's not a surprise. That team has some hitters top to bottom. So they're even after they play this week, they'll I'm sure they'll still be in that top 1 or 2, maybe even that top 3 there. So, but looking at the number 2 spot right now, the Capital City Crushers are sitting there, followed by the Mavericks and Norsemen. You look at the runs scored. That's kind of the tail of the tape here. I mean, it's those are our league leaders. They kind of follow suit all the way down to St. Michael, who is right now sitting in last place, but they're not scoring a lot of runs. But I think they can. I've seen in the last year that they can. So it's sort of following that run scored pattern in the American League right now.
Right. I think the other column you can look at is the average exit velocity. I mean, I think those are the 2 columns that will tell you if these standings may be due for an adjustment in the future, right? Teams that have a higher average exit velocity who are lower in the standings may be due for an upward adjustment and vice versa.
Yeah. The one kind of that stands out a little bit is the Norsemen. They are sitting in that 4th place spot with a 73.22 exit velocity, and that is the league leader. No, it's the second. Capital City Crushers have a 75.42. So there's a little bit of an outlier there. Not far, but a little bit.
Right. I mean, these records are really a function of how much you clump your runs together. The more you clump them together, the more your record may not reflect your hitting ability, but over time that clumping is going to kind of spread out. It's going to even out, and you would anticipate that maybe by the end of the year the standing order reflects one or maybe both runs scored and average exit velocity.
Yeah, the top 5 in this division. This is a tight race, so they're separated by just points. So this thing is far from over. 5 weeks left in the season after this. No, 6 weeks. So we're in week 5 this weekend.
Yeah, I think 5 and then playoffs.
Yeah,
I think that's how we're doing it.
All right, let's move over to the national division, the 65 mile per hour division. Sitting at the top, the Mammoth, not a surprise. They've kind of ended there last year and they've stayed there. Followed by the Cardinals, North Stars, Merchants, and Sea Donkeys. Anything standing out to you there, Tom?
Well, I'm a little surprised where the Grays are right now in the standings. I mean, I know a lot of the Grays hitters and I know how good they are. So maybe that a little bit, the fact that they're under 500.
It's the lack of Mark Van Ruden there, and that wrist injury. So that's keeping him out of the lineup.
John Woderski. I don't know. I don't know if John's injured. Maybe he's rehabbing that bicep that's given him some issues the past couple of years. But I haven't seen his name pop up in the numbers this year.
But in all honesty, not joking, those 2 are really good hitters, and you take those 2 out of your lineup, and that is a hole.
And I know Jack Nelson's been there sporadically. I mean, I think the weeks that Jack comes is going to be he's going to provide a big boost. But in terms of the order, it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, you've got the Mammoth, the Federal League team, the Cardinals, TCMBL team, the North Stars. I think they play in that Thursday night league. Merchants are a town ball team, so it's interesting that you've got kind of players from all over the amateur metro scene, not only playing in IBEX, but kind of representing their respective leagues and finishing, showing right now at the top of this division. So that's kind of fun.
And you talked about in the 55 mile an hour division, the exit velocity. The 65 division is kind of following suit there, that the top exit velocities are sitting at the top of the division and they just tear themselves down or step themselves down. So that seems like a common theme at this point of the season. Maybe that'll separate a little bit as maybe fatigue sets in as the season keeps going, or maybe guys are going to get stronger in preparation for the spring.
Right. Yeah, I think we could see change in these standings. And, I don't know that Mike shared the playoff structure with teams. We won't get into it tonight, but, these these standings are really a prelude to the postseason tournament. I believe everyone's going to have a chance to compete in that. So you want to finish well for your seeding, right? But ultimately, the champion's going to be decided by the playoffs.
Yeah, let's close the books on standings for this week. Let's move over to some awards. Let's talk about the AL MVP at this point.
Okay.
The AL 55 mile per hour MVP right now is Eric Lundgren.
Yeah, Eric hit a home run in his last at bat this week, I believe, in his second game. We'll have video of that later. He seems primed to make a run for the most valuable player trophy, which in our case is a bat. So I'm expecting more of the same from Eric.
Yeah, he's got a 6-point lead over the number 2 spot, and after that, it's pretty tight. Those guys are within a fraction of a point, 2, 3, and 4.
Right. If you understand how our scoring works, and I know that's a big if because you have to read the tab that explains it, but if you understand how the scoring works, you'll understand that it's difficult to open up a lead in either the MVP or the player of the season. So this is going to be close, I think, the rest of the way, unless Eric basically dominates every single week. I mean, the one way you pull away is by, not surprisingly, dominating every single week. But I expect this race to stay pretty tight.
Yeah, anyone surprising you in this one right now, or is this kind of where you?
Well, I know some of the
anticipated?
names and some of the names I don't. I mean, Kenny and I are going to get in there at some point and take pictures of the new guys, and hopefully we can get to meet some of you. But I mentioned last week Ryan Fireisen. He's a longtime TCMBL guy, or at least he had one or two huge seasons. I know that 'cause we did some statistical analysis on him over at Mabel Metrics. But some of these guys, Sprints, first name Sprints, last name Sprints. I have no idea who he is.
Norseman.
On the Norseman. But it's good to see Mike Santi there.
Yeah.
James Zapp, I know, can really
we
hit.
do
Good
have
pitcher too.
we do have a team with 2 representatives in this top top 8 here, from the spare parts team. So,
Right, and then there's 2 guys I don't know, like Nate Osland and Alan Vonderhaar. I know Nate had a huge week, so it'd be fun to get in there and just kind of check him out.
yeah, let's why don't we talk about the player of the season then? Now that we're still in the AL
Sure.
side of things, right now it's Chris Munchow sitting there at tops, way tops. He's got 103.65
I
points.
think Chris was in first last week too, so he's opening up that lead. Now, having just said it's difficult to open a lead up, you can see that Chris has opened a lead. What that tells you is he's really improving dramatically from week to week. There's a few more names on this list again that I'm not that familiar with. I know who Wes Hansen is, but I mentioned it last week. This list is really attractive and rewarding to newcomers because it takes them a while kind of to find their stride, and I think you're seeing that in these early player of the season standings.
Yeah, this can be pretty fluid. This side of the player of the season. I mean, you could see some players that maybe are just starting to build their stat lines, and they're just gonna maybe started off a little slow and are just coming on strong, and maybe it's what we're seeing here.
Right.
Okay, let's move on over to the National Division, 65 mile an hour MVP. Sitting at the top of the leaderboard in the MVP standings, Tom Corcoran of the Mammoth with a 99.4 for points, followed by Sam Knight of the North Stars, Dan Casaza, Sea Donks, and Keith
Bistodoo.
Bistodoo.
We're gonna guess Bistodoo. Keith was
We'll
joking.
butcher it every week, so
He was joking on Twitter that I think his students have a hard time with the name too. Really shouldn't be that difficult. It looks like Bistodoo. I mean, there's like a French end to that last name. At any rate, yeah, Casey, Valentino, some of the same names we saw last week.
yeah, all of them are great hitters. There's 0 surprises there. 2 Mammoth, Casey Johnson, Tom Corcoran, 3. Throw Randy Schmidt in there. Randy's at the 8th spot there. But yeah, it's this one isn't far off from what it was last week.
Yeah, and again, we talk about these things like everybody out there understands the calculus behind them. We know some people don't. Check out the website. There's a pretty detailed explanation of how we come up with these numbers.
Again, the website is www.indoorbaseballx.com. Now let's move over to the player of the season in that national division. Bjorn sitting tops. He's had a good year this year.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Rob Jones. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think I will. Rob pointed out that strikeouts are being counted in this player of the season calculus. And by that, I mean player of the season is based on exit velocity. And someone who comes in with a strikeout has a 0. And that really sets a low baseline. So I think what happened with Bjorn, I haven't verified this, but I expect what happened is he had a couple strikeouts in his first game or two. And that really sets his baseline low. And as player of the season points are based on how much you exceed your baseline every week. he started, I think, with a low baseline, and I think that's really helping him as he gets into his stride. He's having, there's a lot of distance now between his performance every week and the baseline coming in. So it's going to take a while for that baseline to kind of rise to his level. I told Rob I thought I removed um, strikeouts from this formula. It appears maybe I haven't. So if we're not going to change anything this year, but I think next year we're just going to remove strikeouts from this formula. So the zero that you get, the zero exit velocity you get from a strikeout will not be incorporated into this formula. But for now, Bjorn is playing by the rules and he's opened up quite a lead.
Everyone's open to those same rules. So if you want to get on that leaderboard, strike out.
Strike out early. It doesn't help you as much late, but yeah.
The interesting thing about this right now, player of the season, at least that I find interesting in the 65 mile per hour division is Keith. Keith Bistido, you find on the most valuable player list, but you're also seeing him in second place in the player of the season.
He did the same thing last year. I remember he shot up both standings last year, and I'm sure the pattern was the same. He started out struggling, and he's such a powerful hitter that a guy like Keith who struggles early, not only does he have room to grow on that player of the season, but he's such a big hitter that he can climb the most valuable player ranking as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. You spoke of Rob Jones earlier. Rob is actually sitting in that A spot this week.
Yeah, it hurts me. It hurts me a little bit to see Rob there, as he's kind of a friend of me. But in all seriousness, I'm happy to see a Skeeter there, and Rob's great. So,
all right. Well, that wraps up the 65 mile an hour division awards for the this week in the Unwrap. Let's talk about a few records that were maybe set in this last week of the IBEX season.
Yeah, so we had one, and that was Tanner Anderson. We're going to pull up Tanner's player page. This is where you find both a season and a career overview of Tanner's performance. See who his MLB comp is. By the way, if you've gone to the player page and you notice that the major league players' headshots aren't showing up, it's because of the strike right now or the lockout. The only guys who are showing up are retired players. So in this case, looks like Tanner does have a player. Who is that? That's Michael Kadire. Yeah. So what Tanner did this week was he hit 6 straight line drives, which is the third best line drive streak in IBEX history. It may not sound that impressive, 6 line drives, but HitTrax is a fairly exacting standard in terms of what counts as a line drive. So the fact that, he's in third place, having hit 6 tells you, one, it's an impressive achievement, and two, it's not that it's uncommon to see a guy do that. So congratulations to Tanner. If he goes to our record page, you can see his name there, forever emblazoned on the pages of IBEX.
All right, well, let's move to the tail of the tape this week then. Hitting a shot that went 377 feet is Tom Corcoran. Tom, obviously known for being a home run hitter.
Yeah, Tom combines two things, and it manifests both in HitTrax and in real baseball, and that's, the ability to hit the ball a long way and a launch angle that is really high. I mean, if you compare his launch angle numbers to other players in the league, Tom is I haven't done this analysis, but I would anticipate he's in the 95th percentile or higher of his average launch angle. So you hear major league hitters talking about launch angle all the time. You can see the results manifest in IBEX in Tom Corcoran's performance.
Yeah, this shot was he hit with a 93.6 exit velocity. The second longest, Tom Corcoran, that one went 272 feet with a 93.6 exit velocity.
Yeah, there's I don't want to say there's a sameness to Tom Corcoran's home run, because every home run is an exciting event when you hit it, but Cork hits so many of them that, watching these videos, I've just seen this so much from Cork. This is the third one?
This is the second one.
Second one, 372?
Yep, 372. His third one went 371.
We're seeing all these shots go to right center. That's the other thing about Cork. He'd have more home runs in IBEX if he pulled the ball more, but you can see he hits the ball to right center. Does the same thing in outdoor baseball as well. His power, I think, is left center to right center rather than down the line.
What stadium are they in right now? Do you recall?
That is Camden.
Camden.
You can see the warehouse back there. That was kind of fun to play at.
Our fourth longest shot of the week was our very own Randy Schmidt.
Our partner. Now Randy is unlike Cork in that he's just a dead pull hitter. I mean, he just turns and burns not only in IBEX but in real baseball as well. So Randy has no problems hitting the ball for distance. His challenge is keeping those balls fair typically.
Yeah, that one went 369 feet with a 93.1 exit velocity. His second on the day went 365 feet with an exit velocity of 90.7. Kind of the same thing as you see there. He pulled it right down the line and just got her over the fence.
Now, if you listen to the audio of these, there's some excitement. I'm there. The Skeeters are playing these guys, but there isn't quite the excitement level you're going to see in some of the videos to follow, because for some of these other guys, I think we're going to open one up now. Mike Lewis. It's a less common event to hit a home run. So let's watch Mike. You can see Mike throws up his hands. I think that's Steve Kleppen who's given the fist bump to. So
That's a Fenway shot. That Mike Lewis went 350 feet, exit velocity 89.4, and if I'm not mistaken, Tom, we're awarding that the celebration of the week.
I think so. I mean, Mike was clearly excited. One thing I was talking to Ken before we started is, we don't sit and watch 14 hours of this Twitch video. So we're kind of selecting for celebrations, celebrations that are pinned to events like this one. If you have a celebration that you want us to consider for celebration of the week, just reach out to Randy Ken or I at Twitter or at our email address, and just let us know that you did something that we might want to take a look at. That would really help us out.
For sure. Let's go to another home run for the week. Was Andy Powell, who hit a 335-foot shot with an 88.3 exit velocity.
I watched all the Merchants games last year, and Andy really stuck out to me. I don't want to say he's the best hitter on the Merchants, but he's certainly one of the best hitters. I don't remember him hitting a home run. I think he's got 2 now in the past 2 weeks. I'm not surprised. He's got a short, compact swing that, to me, looks like more of a line drive than a guy who generates a lot of launch angle. But you can see here when he gets into it, he's got the strength to hit it out of the park.
He kind of just hung over the plate there and just powered her over.
Right.
This guy, the next guy, hit one 330 feet. His name is Eric Lundgren. Lundgren had an exit velocity of 87 miles per hour. We are actually giving Eric the runner-up on the celebration of the week. And I think he had a nice fist bump there at the end.
It was very short and compact. I mean, a boxer would be happy with that just kind of a short uppercut. I think that was Eric's last swing of the day too. And I know Eric follows these stats, so I'm not surprised we saw that fist pump. I think he was probably hoping to do that all day, but.
Fenway's that park that everyone feels like, I can put it over the green monster, but it's harder than you think. That's not the easiest thing in the world. You see that ball come right off Eric's bat right off the bat. It looks like it goes almost straight up in the air, and it just sort of just keeps going.
You can kind of tell a team that hasn't played an IBEX a lot because they'll pick Fenway right off the bat usually when they can pick their home field. And what they find is that it's hard to clear that green monster, and if you don't clear that green monster, it's a single. So it's not a field that people generally choose to play at.
Yeah. Wrapping up the home runs for the week was Steve Kleppen. Kleppen hit a 321 foot shot with an exit velocity of 86.3. Not his longest home run he's ever hit, not his most powerful exit velocity, but this is what Kleppen does. He just muscles balls over the fence.
This is what it looks like when you don't hit the ball as hard as you can and it still clears the fence. Like, there's not a lot of guys in the league who can do this. It's what makes Steve such a good hitter in IBEX and such a fun hitter to watch, not only in IBEX but in real baseball.
Yeah,
I've been a big Steve Kleppen. This is another guy who probably wasn't aware back in the day that I was a Steve Kleppen fan when I was a Steve Kleppen fan, but I was a Steve Kleppen fan when he played for the Rams. And I still am. I mean, he's just fun to watch.
Yep, that concludes the tale of the tape for this week. It also concludes our broadcast for this week. Tom, I want to thank you for coming in. Next week, we'll have Randy back in my seat, a guy that knows what he's doing and speaks very well. I want to also give a shout out to the Hit Club for hosting the IBEX League again this year. We also want to push everyone to the website, www.indoorbaseballx. Twitter as well. Tweet us at indoorbaseballx. And also, you'll find these videos on YouTube, Indoor Baseball Experience. Subscribe, like, share these videos. We hope to get more out there as we go. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week.
Thanks, everybody.